the solar system. We've left crap everywhere, haven't we? Like just a trail of non-biodegradable breadcrumbs. Everywhere we go, we've left stuff on the moon, we've dropped stuff on Venus, and moons of Saturn, and stuff on Mars. There are some things that we have flung out into the solar system with no destination in mind. I just think there's somewhere out there, there's an extraterrestrial looking on with that one tear. Like what we're doing to their galaxy. And I don't mean to preach, brothers and sisters, but we treat the Earth like the Who treated a hotel room. They were a band. Do you know the thing, the spacecraft I'm talking about? There were 4 in the 70s, the Pioneer and Voyager spacecraft that we sent out in 4 different directions, and they had missions of science missions, but they also carried plaques with information about us in the chance that they might be found by someone else. And the one that I liked best was the Pioneer 10 plaque. It was this gold record, and it had a drawing of a man and a woman, human man and woman, and they're naked, which, this is not a joke, they caught a little flack for that. Some people were like, we're sending porn out to aliens, you know? Did they pay for a subscription? But I mean, I don't know what they want. You want what? Should we send it out with fig leaves? Is that what you want? So they actually had a naked man and woman, and first iteration they had them holding hands. And someone pointed out that if you have them holding hands, that could look like one entity, one creature. Yeah, this is not a joke either. That it could look like one, because they don't know, they're not familiar with our anatomy, so they might not know that we even have 2 sexes, and that's them holding hands. So what they did is they're like not quite holding hands. They kind of look like a couple at a work function that would like to be holding hands. But they're not quite. And then there is a representation of the solar system with 9 planets, so I don't know how they'll find it now. Does anyone, what do you think about the Pluto thing? How many, you think it's sad? Does it depress? No, you're like, what do you have against Pluto? Cold, distant. I don't want to be in a platonic relationship. I performed at a conference once that was all scientists, but of all disciplines, and I was going to tell this joke, and as I was getting close to it, I realized there was an astronomer in the room, and his name was Brother Guy Consolmagno. He's an astronomer from the Vatican, and he is also curator of the Vatican meteorite collection. How would you like that on your business card? Did you know the Vatican had a meteorite collection? He's the curator. And he's a great guy, no pun intended, and really fun. And as I approached that joke, I said, hey, Brother Guy, what did you think of Pluto getting demoted? And he said, truthfully, I was on the committee that decided. And the whole room laughed, and then they hissed him. And it was such a beautiful moment. It was one of my favorite moments on stage ever. And then afterwards, he said, I didn't say which way I voted. So yeah, he was kind of going for the laugh. So anyway, the Pioneer 10, so there was the representation, 9 planets, and there was a path. It was like a little picture, a little representation of the spacecraft, and a line coming from the 3rd planet. That's this one, still, until somebody goes after Mercury. And did anyone else, though, ever look at this thing and think, God, that just looks like a menu with directions to the restaurant? And I don't know if it's ever going to be found. It's like a message in a bottle in the vastness of space. But what if it is found? And what if they're not friendly? You know? What if they're hungry? We look fleshy and delicious. We don't have claws or an exoskeleton. We look easier to eat than a pistachio or a crab. I mean, they could have used just a little artistic license, make us look a little more fearsome, or at least a little more well-endowed so we could hold our heads up in galactic locker rooms. Would that have been so bad? So here's another fear. The LHC, we had a presentation on the Large Hadron Collider, and even before the LHC came online and has had the success that we hoped for just recently, even a year ago, the LHC had already proven that science can get massive mainstream media attention if there's at least the suggestion that it will destroy the planet. And that's good information, useful information for researchers. Just play up the potentially life-threatening aspects of your research. That is headline news right there. No, I don't know if we have time to talk about too many more of these things. How are we doing? Are you tired? Alright. I gotta be selective though. There was something, any questions? I'm forming a support group for people who've not been abducted by aliens. It's like, what am I, chopped liver sort of thing? It's like, am I not a good specimen of humanity? I have a friend who he said he called me, he said he chased a UFO recently in his car. I mean, he was in his car, the UFO wasn't. It would have to be very small. I told you to keep the windows rolled up. He said he chased the UFO and he lost it because flying saucers don't have to stick to the roads. So, but what was he thinking? What if they'd stopped and gotten out? What would you say? Yeah. Whoa, I'm sorry. Thought you were someone else. And keep the anal probe away from him. Any questions? I'm more than half serious on that. There's many things we could talk about here. One of the things, you know, in Brian's presentation too, the whole thing about the Virgin, and you know, all these, last year, not only was there this story about a Cheeto that looked like Jesus, but there was a story of someone in a small town in Florida who had a chest x-ray in which Jesus appeared. And the story starts with him having chest pains, which, duh, you know, if you had Jesus resurrected inside your chest cavity, you would have chest pains. The chest cavity was not designed for such a divine visitation. Or if it was, that's not intelligent design, right? So, the whole thing cracked me up, everything about it. But there was one part where they show him on screen, and it said his name, Ronaldo Farinas. And then, you know, it's that thing, I've always loved those lower thirds, and it says, Ronaldo Farinas sees Jesus in X-ray. How would you like your life summed up in those 4 words? Brian Malow sees Jesus in X-ray. Next. And there was a part, he was an older Hispanic guy, his English wasn't great, so maybe this is unfair, but the first thing he said was, "This never happened to me." I thought, right, it never happened to anyone, exactly. But then, and honestly, what you could tell by what he was saying was, this never happened to me before. But that's just as good. Like, he's acting surprised that Jesus never previously resurrected. So that's really beautiful. But then they show the X-ray. When they showed the X-ray, I looked over, I could not see Jesus at all. And what I finally saw was what, if it was anything, it looked like a gray. It looked like a little alien. That's what I saw. And I didn't see Jesus, but I saw a little gray. And if you think about it, that actually makes much more biological sense. Right? Because an extraterrestrial inside somebody's chest, right? That makes perfect sense. It fits science fiction canon, at least, right? There's no second coming or resurrection required, no magic. It's just the natural part of a metamorph's life cycle. So to incubate inside a host organism, this makes perfect sense. I'm glad it made the news, you know? Nothing supernatural. The visitor is not from heaven. It's from Zeta Reticuli. And then I think a family member closed with, it was a beautiful closing, like for skeptics.